Many horror films have featured a serial killer on the hunt for a babysitter. Like many of you, I presumed this was an urban legend. The scary thing about urban legends is that they are all based on some truth. The story first began to be told in the 1960s. Only one of the two was a babysitter, however, they are connected. Rose Mary Lou Jenkins, 20, was described as a quiet, attractive blonde. She was concerned with her studies and her family. She was the third child of Jacques and Dorothy Jenkins. They lived in a small stucco house on the northeast corner of West Boulevard and Rollins Road. The home is still standing today. She spent the afternoon of February the 5th, 1946, at Town Hall, a Stevens College club. She went home rather than spend the night at a friend's house, intending to study for a final the next morning. Mary Lou resided with her mother in the home. Her father, a plasterer by trade, was in Kansas City, where he relocated to work in a defense plant. Orrin, her brother, moved in with his father after serving in World War II. Jacqueline Persing, an older married sister, lived in Denver. Dorothy was getting ready for an overnight nursing job at a nearby home around 10 p.m. Mary Lou closed and locked the hook-latch screen door and the front door behind her when her mother left. Blood-curdling screams echoed nearby 15 minutes later. Leo Collins and Jeannie Jurgensmeyer, who lived nearby, heard them and described it as a terrible scream. The Collins did not look into it. The noise was assumed to be made by their rabbits. Dorothy made a signal with Mary Lou in case anyone came to the home while she was gone. Mary Lou was supposed to open a blind, switch on a light, and call her mother. Her mother could see their home from where she worked as a nurse. Her mother noticed the lights were on around midnight. Dorothy did not receive a call from her daughter. She returned shortly after 6 a.m. to find the house locked from the inside, but the screen door in front of the house was open. Dorothy broke a side window and hoisted herself inside after Mary Lou did not respond to her mother's knocks. She discovered her daughter bruised and beaten on the living room floor. She was in her pajamas and dressing gown, wadded beneath her upper body. The torn pajama pants were on the floor beneath one foot. The panicked mother hurriedly removed an electrical cord tightly wrapped 5 times around her daughter's neck in an attempt to save her daughter. Dorothy called the police after Mary Lou did not respond. The investigation had reached a standstill. The murder shocked Columbia as never before. According to the Tribune, women were advised not to go out at night, and supply stores ran out of door locks and safety chains. The police detained 20 black youths 10 days after the murder and questioned them for hours. Larry Monroe, a Columbia resident, was 9 years old when Jenkins was murdered. In a recent interview with the Tribune, he stated that while he did not recall the specifics of that case, a white girl was attacked in Columbia and the town's young black males were locked down. Floyd Cochran shot his wife, May, in the shoulder and neck with a 12-gauge shotgun on February the 23rd, 1946, at their Illinois Avenue home. He then went across town to the old dump. He was discovered at the dump by a Columbia police officer. Lloyd was taken to the Boone County Jail because he attempted to take his life by drinking lye water and appeared mentally unstable. No one was aware that his wife had died at their home. Because Floyd attempted to take his life, the doctor suggested that Cochran be admitted to the Fulton State Hospital. Cochran's brother, Turner Cochran, came to see him and agreed. Turner and his sister Lola Banks discovered May's body when they went to the Cochran home on the afternoon of February the 24th, 1946. To get her signature on the commitment papers. Even though there was no evidence linking Floyd to Mary Lou's death, the town began to suspect Floyd. Cochran had occasionally hauled garbage for the Jenkins, most recently about 3 months before Mary Lou's murder. According to the officers, he told Mary Lou that her mother owed him 80 cents, which allowed him into the home where he allegedly assaulted and killed the woman. After 24 hours of questioning, Floyd confessed to the murders. He had not been allowed to sleep in 2 days. This would not be permitted today without an attorney. It should also be noted that when Floyd was drafted for the war, he was denied entry due to his 10-year-old mentality. Besides the fact that he hauled trash for the Jenkins, there was no evidence against him. On May 7, 1946, Cochran pleaded guilty to murdering his wife and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. His trial for the Jenkins murder began on May 27th. Cochran was denied the right to a fair trial. Mary Lou's mother, Dorothy, was allowed to cry in front of the jury. There was also an all-white jury. This would not be allowed today. After losing his appeal, the state moved quickly to execute Cochran. He ordered a T-bone steak, French fries, scalloped corn, cream gravy, bread, cake, and coffee for his final meal at the Missouri State Penitentiary. Floyd did not touch any of it. At 12:01 a.m., Cochran walked the last mile to the nearby gas chamber, wearing only black shorts and a blindfold. Cochran was strapped into the metal chair of the 6 by 10 foot chamber as the 2 chaplains stood nearby. The man asked for forgiveness for his sins. The pair instructed him on how to say the Lord's Prayer, but he could not remember the words on his own. Floyd's final words were, "Mr. Stewart?" Mr. Stewart served as a warden. Instead of responding, he motioned for the gas chamber's lever to be pulled. Suspicions that police had apprehended the wrong man grew in the years following Cochran's execution. Assaults on young women in the Jenkins neighborhood fueled that suspicion. A masked man attacked a 16-year-old babysitter on East Sunset Lane in October of 1949. A few weeks later, another 18-year-old girl was attacked while at home alone, just a block away. However, it was not until the 1950 violation and murder of 13-year-old Janett Christman, which occurred less than 2 blocks from the Jenkins home, that law enforcement considered the possibility that Cochran was innocent. Christman was beaten, violated, and strangled with an electric cord while she was alone. A murder so similar to Mary Lou's that police investigated them as a possible lead. Police identified Robert Mueller as the most likely suspect in the Christman's murder, but a grand jury declined to indict him. Janett Christman of Columbia, Missouri was violated and murdered while babysitting a toddler on a cold March night in 1950, a few days shy of her 14th birthday. Janett Christman, the oldest daughter of Charles and Lula Christman, was born in March 1936. Her family owned a cafe and steakhouse in Columbia, Missouri, where she lived. Janett, a 13-year-old Jefferson Junior High School student, was described as a caring teen who was very intelligent for her age. On Saturday, March the 18th, 1950, Janett had plans to babysit for one of the two families she babysat for, Ed and Ann Romack. Gregory, their 3-year-old son, was to be babysat by Janett. At 7:30 p.m., Janett arrived at the Romacks' home at 1015 Stewart Road, where the married couple had recently relocated. Ann Romack was pregnant with their third child at the time. They were to be out for the night with their friends. When Janett arrived at the house, they informed her that Gregory liked sleeping with the radio on and that he should not be a bother to her. At around 10:30 p.m., the local sheriff's department received a frantic phone call from a female voice screaming, "Come quick!" Before the line went dead, the call was unable to be traced. When the parents of the 3-year-old boy Janett was caring for arrived home at around 1:15 a.m., they discovered a terrifying and grisly scene. The house showed signs of a struggle. Janett lay dead in the living room, with wounds to her head and an ironing cord around her neck. During the ordeal, their son was sound asleep. This crime shook the community. Robert Mueller had made unwanted advances toward Janett in the past. When Robert asked Janett to babysit that night, she said she had already agreed to do so for the Romacks. Mueller knew Ed Romack. Despite the overwhelming circumstantial evidence, Mueller passed a polygraph test and was not charged with Janett's murder. There were similarities in the deaths. Electrical cords were used to strangle the victims. The perpetrator gained entrance through a side window. Under current laws, Floyd would not be executed. Someone with this level of mental disability is not executed in our society. This story was difficult for me to write. I restored all the photos in my videos. I felt terrible for Floyd and his family's terrible injustice. His expression seemed sad to me. Many people refer to those years as the good old days. I do not. Those years were full of terrible injustices. I tried to find more information for you about Floyd and his family. I could not find any information on his wife, May, or their family. Floyd, in my opinion, did not commit these murders. He did murder his wife. He was about to begin serving his 15-year sentence. I believe he should have been admitted to a mental hospital for proper treatment. What are your thoughts? Was Mueller responsible for this? He lived to be 83. He ended up in California. Perhaps he kept going with his crimes. Do you feel he was a serial killer who was never caught? Do you believe Floyd did it? Maybe you felt it was someone else. Please share your thoughts with me.